Hi ladies, welcome to our afternoon session on how to get the most out of a career fair. I'm paraphrasing there. So let's get started. My name is Amanda Rogers. I'm the CEO of WK Digital. I'm here to chair the session. If you need anything, please come find me. But I'd love to introduce Anne Ryan. She's from Palantir Technologies out of New York. She says she has two superpowers. Actually, you told me more than two superpowers, but the most important one is that if you have a problem, if you need help with your resume, she can help you in 2 seconds flat. She's very good at that. But her other more interesting superpower is waiting accidentally until you've put food in your mouth to ask you a really important question and then make awkward small talk while you finish your bite. And why don't you come up?
Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the talk. I know it's almost the end of the conference, so I appreciate it. And I'm so excited to be here. This is my first time speaking in Australia. As you can tell from my accent, I'm from New York, and I'm very proud of that. Okay. Cool. So we're going to be talking about career fairs, and I'm not super familiar with how universities and colleges kind of do job searching in Australia. So has anyone ever gone to a career fair at your college? At your college, yeah? Okay, gone to a career fair in general? Okay, has anyone gone to the career fair today? Okay, so they're a thing. They're a thing?
Yeah, so you want to...
I want to say university?
Yeah,
okay, I want to say university. And do folks say CVs or resume? Both. Oh, well, that's easy. I can work with that. Okay, that's fine. Cool. So this talk is called Career Fairs for Fun and Profit, but mostly profit. My colleague Nomi actually named this talk for me. So props to Nomi for doing that. Okay, this is a little bit about me. I have my bachelor's in computer and systems engineering and computer science. I did a master's in engineering management. I have been at Palantir for 11 years plus. So it's a very long time in the tech world to be at one company, but I've had many different roles. I co-founded and currently lead our Women in Tech group, which is really, really fun. And a couple of years ago, I just got the notion that I should give a talk at a conference, and so I submitted a proposal, and I haven't stopped since. This is my 5th AnitaB.org event at which I'm speaking, and this is the first time, though, that I've been doing this talk. I'm going to be honest, I submitted this talk 4 times before it got accepted. So if you have a talk idea and it doesn't get accepted the first time, totally fine. Just keep resubmitting, and eventually someone will think it's a good idea. Cool. Okay, so our agenda here, we're going to talk about a little bit of the opportunities that a career fair would provide, and then we're going to talk about 3 things: how to prepare, what to do during the career fair, and how to follow up afterwards. And these are all just bits of advice that I've gleaned from my almost 2 decades of going to career fairs as a student looking for a job, but then also as a recruiter. And I kind of see the same things over and over in terms of, I think, stuff that students could improve upon when they go to a career fair. So I've just slapped them all in the presentation and we'll talk about it. I've also met some new friends. They're up here in the front row yesterday at the networking happy hour, and we were talking about poker, and I agreed to kind of work poker into this conversation. So I will use this analogy. If you're not going all in on a career fair, why bother? Right? Why bother? Should we get started? Yeah? Okay. I did it. Okay, so really quickly, just the couple opportunities that a career fair provides. Obviously, full-time and internship job leads. It's a good excuse to revitalize your resume. How many people have ever updated their resume the night before a career fair? I have. Yeah, okay. Good excuse. Nothing like pushes you to do something like a need for it. Building your professional network, because obviously you're meeting a bunch of people from different companies, a lot of recruiters. You can understand if the company is right for you. I think you can do a lot of research about a company online, of course, but nothing beats talking to someone who's actually working there and hearing about their experience and also thinking about how they're treating you and how your interaction with them, right, to decide if it's a place that you want to work. You can identify new career paths, and I say that just because maybe there's some options that you're not familiar with. Personally, I always thought when I was studying CS that I had to be a developer, and that's not actually the case. And it was only by going to career fairs that I found some different job opportunities open, and I've had a very long career I was a dev for 1 year, and then I went to testing, customer support, and now I'm a project manager. So I've done everything really but that. You can explore different industries. That's all I have to say. Okay. You get to practice your interview skills. Obviously, having an interaction with someone at a career fair is not the same as like having a 45-minute interview, right, on the phone or on Skype or in person. But you do kind of have to elevator pitch yourself and kind of answer some questions about your resume, so it's a good time to kind of practice that. My company, we used to do tech questions at career fairs, and someone would be like, I would like an internship with your company, I want to be a developer. And I immediately would go, that's great, and then ask them an algorithms question. We don't do that anymore, because it would shock people. But in the same vein, I had one person who talked to me 1 year, couldn't answer the question, came back the next year, got all of them right. He had studied. I hired him. True story. Okay, also, I think career fairs are a great way to receive free, potentially really great career advice. And I say this because I think recruiters and people at companies who go to career fairs, they want to be there, generally. They want to talk to you. And nothing is more exciting to someone than talking about themselves. So if you ask questions about what they do at the company or what they like about the company and why you should work there and you're interested about it, likely they're going to give you some really interesting information. So just a little tidbit. Okay. All right, let's talk about preparation for a career fair. So here's what I recommend. But again, take it all with a grain of salt. If you don't like anything, you don't have to keep it. You can just check it out. Look at the company list and career fair map and pick your top 10 to 15 companies. And I recommend doing a little bit of research about all of the companies, maybe like 10 to 15 minutes, right? Take note of the roles that are of interest to you and some fun facts about the company so that you'll be able to have a conversation when you get to that booth. Also, update your resume. You can tailor it for different roles. So if you want to go for a PM role, a project manager role at one company, and then a developer role at a different company, you can have separate versions. Just don't give the wrong version to the wrong company. You know what I mean? Make sure. And then I always say ask a third party to review your resume, just because you want someone who's not you to read it and just see if they find anything super egregious, like a spelling error or grammar or something like that. So I put that on there. Cool. And then you have to craft a short elevator pitch. Has anyone ever crafted an elevator pitch? I have? Yes? Okay, cool. We're gonna craft one today. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
This isn't a workshop.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit about an elevator pitch and what to do when you're at a career fair. And so I'm just gonna give you the 3 things that I see as a recruiter at a career fair, okay? So 2 mistakes. The first mistake is too little information. So someone will come up and say nothing to me. And we'll just sort of stand there, like wide-eyed, like not really sure. And what happens is I have to have a very interesting conversation. So I have to pull information out of them, right? So now I have to go, hi, I'm Ann, what's your name? And they tell me their name. I'm like, what are you looking for? And they say internship or full-time. I say, what are you studying? And then I'm like, what are you interested in? Like, I have to pull information out. And they'll give it to me, but it takes a while. So it's automatically like adding time to the interaction, especially at a busy career fair when I might only have a couple of minutes to talk to somebody, right? So that doesn't really help. The second thing, people provide way too much information. They word vomit, right? They come up to me and they just want to tell me literally everything they've done since birth, which is very intriguing and usually like very interesting, but not quite the information that I need at the moment, right? I just need a couple of basic things to like get the conversation started. There's also the factor that I might not be the best person to talk to at the career fair, right? Like I recruit for certain roles and I'm happy to talk generally about the company, but if you are interested in something very specific and I know that there's another colleague over here that can actually like has that role and is best to talk to, you want to get me to that point immediately so I transfer you over, right? Because you want to talk to the person who knows more than me. Okay, so here's what I think is the right balance of introducing yourself at a career fair. Just provide your name, your major.
Or courses.
Major or course of study, is that what you'd say? Okay, thank you. I love getting help from the audience. Major or course of study. If you're looking for an internship or a full-time job, a fun fact about yourself, and then I like to end with a question because it gets the conversation started. We have a question.
So what kind of fun facts?
Yes, I have an example. Yeah. And I think it should relate to the job to which you are applying or a quality about yourself that you want to demonstrate. So if I was like sophomore year Anne, right, going to a career fair, okay, I would say like, hi, I'm Anne, I'm studying CS and I'm looking for a summer internship. When I'm not in the lab working on my Java skills, I give tours of campus because I love speaking to new students about engineering opportunities. I've read about the internships online. I'm really interested in the testing one. Can you tell me about that? Super simple, right? But it just gives the person you're talking to just enough information, your name, what you're studying, your interest, something fun to chat about, and then you start it off with a question. So now automatically they're engaged in the conversation, right? And you know what? They don't have to do any work. You've done all of the work for them. And now you're fun to talk to because I didn't have to think. You just told me stuff, right? You see what I'm saying? So like also recruiters, like they're there at career fairs 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've been there all day. Yeah, it is a lot. Like you have to say the same things over and over and over, pull the same information out of people. So if you just give someone a little bit of help, right, they're probably going to be much more apt to want to help you out, right, and chat with you. Cool. I did have a colleague, I used to do presentations with her, and her fun fact was that she did research with sharks and lasers. She'd always use, it was great. People loved it. So if you think of just like a fun fact about yourself, right, and might relate to the job you're applying, I would go with that. Cool. All right, so a couple more things to prepare. A couple days before, prepare your professional attire. Are you expected to go to career fairs in a suit here? No? No, you can go in like jeans? That's amazing. Finance, you gotta go in a suit? Okay, yeah, okay. So I said prepare your professional attire. I didn't specify it because I wasn't sure what that meant, what that would mean here. So prepare your outfit, okay. Preferably comfortable shoes. And then prepare your survival kit, which is gonna be a stack of resumes, right? Maybe the ones that you've individually tailored. And then also bring a notepad and a pen. And I say that because I think it's really important to write things down while you're at the career fair. Cool, okay. So we've covered everything about preparing. We are going to go into how to use your time wisely at the fair. All right, so now you're at the fair, and I have a bunch of do's and don'ts. So arrive at the start. I recommend this because everybody is fresh, right? The worst thing that can happen is when you're trying to pack up your table and someone rushes up to you and wants to talk for 20 minutes. You're very tired, right? So I actually recommend, if you can, arrive at the start of the career fair when everyone is awake and ready to go. I say do practice your elevator pitch, obviously before the fair, but I also recommend practicing it at the fair, and here's how I suggest doing it. Go to companies that are like not at the top of your list first. Just like have a chat with them. You know, and just practice talking so you kind of get in the grooves when you get to the companies you're really interested in. You like kind of know what to say and you've kind of worked out the kinks a little bit. So I recommend going to the ones that you're not super interested in. But if you ever come to a career fair and I'm there, don't come to my table first because I'll know. Okay. Don't just try to get swag. Do you get swag at career events? Yeah, okay. All right. I recommend don't just try and get the swag. Usually if you chat with someone for a while, they'll just give it to you. So just do the like social thing where you gotta like interact for a little bit, get the swag. I recommend taking breaks and hydrating. I feel like career fairs a lot of times can be really stressful environments, so like taking a break to regroup and just take a sip of water is really gonna help. I also recommend having your resume ready when you go up to talk to somebody, and the reason why I say this, it's really awkward if you're like, you give your elevator pitch and then the person's like, great, do you have a resume? And then you have to like reach into your bag, unzip your bag, pull out your folder, pull out the resume. It just like takes so much time. So I actually recommend having it ready to go, have the expectation that they're gonna ask you for it or they're gonna want it from you. So like have it ready, just save some time. And don't worry if you're directed to apply online. I think a lot of companies are moving away from paper resumes to like online applications. And I also kind of say that with a caveat, like if you ask a recruiter like, hey, do you have an email? Can I like reach out to you afterwards with questions? And they may give you a card that's generic. That's okay. That's actually probably a company policy, right? And if they gave out their personal email to all the hundreds of people they met, they would never be done, do you know what I mean? Like responding to emails. So that's totally fine. So don't worry if you're expected to apply online or if someone gives you a generic email. Yes, question.
As you're saying, a lot of companies want you to apply online or email.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay to go with that stance and say, can I send you my email rather than here's a tree killing copy for you? Like, not actually take the paper versions. And
So you mean like do you mean as a...
send it to them electronically rather than offer to giving them a hard copy version after.
Okay. So the reason why I think you need a hard copy version is because it helps the recruiter or the person at the company see your experience and know where to direct you, right? And then you can start having a conversation. It doesn't mean they might keep the resume, but they'll at least have it. So I think bringing a couple of copies would be, do you know what I mean, be prudent. And then if you don't use them, just recycle them. Okay, cool. But that's a great question, actually. All right, do write down the names of people you meet. The reason why I suggest doing this is because if you go to career fairs continually, the same people might actually show up. And wouldn't it be impressive if you actually recognized the person you spoke to at the booth the last year, right? They would probably get a jolt. You'd be like, hi, Candace. You'd be like, oh my gosh. Like, what? But wouldn't that be cool? And then also, if you ever want to follow up, you already have a name of someone who works at that company whom you spoke to, right? So I think the names are really, really important. And do have fun. I think career fairs are just like a cool way to just learn a little bit more about industries and a little bit about jobs and to talk to some people and practice your interview skills. And I think they should be hopefully an enjoyable experience. And if you practice your elevator pitch, the companies you don't like first, you'll be fine. Cool. Okay, before we move on, any questions about what to do during the career fair? Okay, we'll move on to how to use your time wisely. Follow up. Okay, so after the career fair, I think you should spend 15 to 30 minutes debriefing in a quiet space and just asking yourself some thought questions. Like, would you make any changes to your resume or your introduction pitch? Did anyone give you career advice on what you're gonna action? Like they suggested taking on a project or suggested getting a leadership role in something to kind of push you towards your career goals? Think about that. And also, which companies are now at the top of your list? Has that list changed? Did you meet anyone from a company you didn't consider before that now you're really excited about? You know, has like the list of your top 10 to 15, have they switched around? Is there a new role they're interested in? And just to think about that. Also to follow up with people, applying online, because sometimes you'll have to do that. And then if you have contact info for any of the recruiters or people you met, I suggest actually following up with a short email, right? So I'll give you a trick that I use when I go to career fairs. I get 2 back pockets. In one pocket, I have a generic company email with like business card with a generic company email address on it. In the other pocket, I have my own personal business card. If I give you my personal business card, it is saying, I want you to contact me. I want to continue this conversation. I want to help you, okay? So if anyone ever does give you their actual business card, definitely follow up. This is someone who's a contact. You're gonna network with this person, right? You might be able to like keep chatting, even if it's not a job right now, maybe a job later, so you definitely wanna follow up, okay? But you'd be surprised how many people I give my personal business card to and they do not contact me. And it's always so sad because obviously it's like I'd wanted to help, that's why I did it. But it's very rare that I get an email. So that's why I suggest if you get an actual personal email address, actually follow up with it. And just some ideas of how to follow up. Continue the career fair conversation that you had. You know, just say thanks. Hey, thanks, it was so nice to meet you. Love to keep in touch. Let me know if there's any opportunity. Do you know what I mean? If your company's coming to do some info sessions or anything on campus, or you hear about a different job, like love to chat with you. Or request more information about the company. Or like send a fun article if you're chatting about something and you see an article about that thing, like send it along, right? But I wouldn't really ask for too many things, you know, like don't, like just say like, hi, so nice to meet you, here's a thing, or hi, so nice to meet you, can you just send that thing you talked about to me, blah, 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 right? Really, really quick and easy. Okay, we are doing so well in time. We're gonna wrap up and then we'll just have questions if anyone has any. Okay, ramping up. Strategically prepare, so look at the company list and career fair map, spend some time thinking about that, update your resume, craft a short elevator pitch, it can be just 2 to 3 sentences max, right? Prepare your attire and prepare your survival kit. That's resumes, notepad, pen. At the fair, use your time wisely, arrive at the start, practice your elevator pitch, don't just try to get swag because you'll get it anyway. Take breaks and hydrate. Have your resume ready when you're ready to talk to somebody. Don't worry if you're directed to apply online, that's becoming really standard nowadays. Write down the names of people you meet and the companies that they're at, and have fun. And follow up, remember to debrief and just think about how you'd change your resume or how you'd update your pitch and what companies you really like. Do apply, and then follow up with all of your new contacts, preferably within a couple of days. Cool. Okay, it's time for Q&A. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to repeat the question, make sure everyone heard it, make sure I understand it. So you're asking about how do you tell someone about your accomplishments but not sound like you're bragging?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you mean like telling them in your elevator pitch or telling them in your resume?
More like in the elevator pitch, like when you meet them. Just, I guess, like sort of a way for them to remember you as well, because they're probably going to meet like hundreds of people in the same day. And then,
Yeah.
you know, if you kind of tell them, like, oh, I volunteered like at a zoo or something, they'll be like, oh, it's that person who did that really cool thing.
Okay, yeah, so I think picking one, max two things that you want to like say in your elevator pitch is good. And then if you have a well-crafted resume and they look at it, they're going to see the other things, you know, that they're going to find interesting, and you'll probably have a conversation about it. And I also think it's really cool, like if you, in your elevator pitch, if you end with a question, and the reason, again, is like people love to be asked their advice. I love to be asked my advice. And sometimes I'll give you advice, and you didn't even ask me for it. And it's something I'm trying to work on. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, it's a own personal thing. Like, so if you come to someone, you're like, hi, I'm so-and-so. Here's something cool, fun fact about me. What do you do with the company? Can you tell me about it? How did you get here? They're really gonna wanna talk to you now, because they're gonna wanna impart their wisdom and knowledge on you, right? This happens to me all the time. I'm more than happy to chat about it. Do you know? So I think sometimes like the combination of something cool, and you should be proud of your accomplishments, right? It's not bragging to tell somebody that you did something awesome, right? You're just stating it matter-of-factly, right? And then asking them a question, I think you're gonna be, that, to me, that's like that combination actually works really well. Yeah. Cool. Okay, I see a question in the back, yeah.
I just wanted to ask, microphone. So I just wanted to ask, would this feedback you're giving us also apply to like university as well? Because like I'm in grade 11, so like we have career expo, so I don't know if that's the same as like a career fair or anything. So like, would this advice still help if I like meet someone from like the CQ uni and I'm talking to them? Like,
I think so. So is Career Expo kind of like you're looking at universities?
yeah, so it's held in Moranbah usually for like the central Queensland, and a bunch of universities and like the police force come and like share like information and stuff.
Yeah, I think it would totally work there. Yeah, for real. Good luck. Oh, good luck. Good luck, yeah. And I saw there was a question on the side. No worries. I could use my superpower here and make small talk, but it wasn't enough. Yeah.
I was wondering if you have any advice on finding objective information on companies. Trying to strip away, you know, there's propaganda, like we're a great company, but then there's also internal culture. Something that I want to do next round is try and get objective information on what a company's actually like.
Yeah.
Have you got any advice on that, or?
Okay, so I'm just going to repeat the question to make sure I understand it. So you're curious if you're going online and you want to find objective information about a company, how do you do that? Okay, so I think you always can start with the company website, but also be aware that that's what they've chosen to put on there, right? Okay. There's also a lot of websites that you can look at to see what other people are saying about the company, right? You can do a search on the news, but also be aware sometimes the news is not, do you know what I mean? It could be one-sided or so you don't know. You can also read sites like Glassdoor or Fairy Godboss is another one. Fairy Godboss is for women specifically. They put like postings of companies and what it's like to work there. Glassdoor is another great one where you can just see reviews from people. And I kind of feel like it's a little bit like Yelp, like you have to read through a lot, do you know what I mean, and still make your own assessment. The next thing is also, go and talk to the people at the company and ask them what it's like to work there. And kind of get their thoughts as well. And here's what I'm saying. I know you're kind of like, I'm not sure. I can feel like you're like, I'm not sure about this. When you go in an interview at a company, right? So let's say you talk to people at the career fair, you've had your phone interview, they invite you on site. You're still deciding about the company. Not a problem. Come up with a list of questions that you're gonna ask every single person who interviews you. And ask them what you wanna know, what the culture's like, what their team's like whatever is most important to you in a work environment. Ask everybody those same questions and see if the answers differ and how they differ, right? And that's gonna also, it's like you can do your research ahead of time to decide, is this a place that like I might think I might wanna work, right? But the whole interview process is a two-way street where the company is interviewing you being like, will this person help our company? But you're also interviewing the company and the people you might be working with to be like, is this a place I want to be, right? And you actually have the choice to say no. Do you know what I mean? At any point in time, yeah.
So that's
Yeah, I think we're out of time.
Well done, Anne. Can we all give Anne a huge hand?
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to this session, and we're really excited to hear what Chiara has to say. My name is Amanda Rogers. I'm the CEO of WK Digital and just a general facilitator this afternoon. So first things first, everyone's got their phone on silent so everyone can hear what Chiara has to say. Without further ado, let's hear from this amazing woman who is a perfect example of why we are all here today, is trying to make a huge difference in STEM, and I won't do what you've already developed in your life justice. So Chiara and Misola, please come up and tell us more, please. Thanks, Chiara.
Hi, it's really overwhelming to be standing here in front of so many people, and I'm really grateful to be speaking at my second AnitaB.org event, and I'm still in disbelief. So I'm sure that everyone in this room or in this whole conference hall have the best intentions to do good with tech. And as we all know it, tech today isn't really used for great things all the time. Yet it's important to know that the potential of liberation and good is still in our capacity, and we just need to know how to wield it. I think it's especially critical for us today to have that difficult evaluation on whether what we're doing, whether we're industry professionals or in the academe, or for people like me, young students, is centered on a morally right or just thing. So the biggest question I first want to pose is why we use the term tech for social good in the first place. And I kind of get it. Like, good things have to work for profit, and they have to be sustainable. But I'm wondering how many more food delivery apps in tech or image sharing social network applications there can be that talk about how they're changing the world or disrupting an industry or revolutionizing the scene or just changing something for good when, you know, there are a lot more problems than that. When we're dedicated to having large subdivisions of companies working on social responsibility in time of extreme inequality, I think it's in this present year that we're facing the greatest divides that there are. Maybe we need to begin questioning why social good can continue standing as an afterthought, why it's just a topic or a track in a conference and not something we center ourselves on, why it can never be synonymous with technology alone, why social enterprises will always be an enterprise first and secondly social. And maybe again, I'm but one more voice talking tech for impact. Maybe I'm just attempting to empower people to make a difference, just another speaker, but you know, I'm maybe one voice in this conversation that giants and thought leaders and TEDx speakers have all talked to you over and over and over about, but in every voice, hopefully you can find something new. So to introduce myself a bit, I'm Chiara. I'm a teenager, student, founder, and activist. So currently I'm 19 and I'm a rising sophomore at Yale doing computer science and art. I actually flew in for the conference from the Philippines, where I'm the CEO and founder of an international nonprofit organization called Develop. So what we do is that we invest in youth-led innovation, and I started this as an organization when I was 16 in my high school. And what we want to do is we engage student founders in startup ecosystems, working to diversify the innovation we see and in turn bridge gaps in technology. I also like civ tech and anything computational justice and other normal angsty teenager things. So this is my second time speaking at an AnitaB.org event. Just to give some credentials, I'm the 2018 Student of Vision Abbey Award winner. It completely changed my life, and it made me know that I really want to do good in diversity in tech and working these spaces and also filling in some gaps that I've seen in these discussions. So the first thing I want to say is that technology is not the same. The conversations that we're going to be having in this room, no matter how much of a crowd we have and attract, will always be something that we need to continue adapting and evolving and learning from. And they're drastically different from the conversations that are being had in the tech spaces in the rest of the world. I'm not denying technology is good at all, but we need to be cognizant of its failures and thinking that are often lauded, but not what's necessary in many of our spaces. So I'm going to be presenting to you guys some points and thinkings that I've learned from my insights from being a student in America for the first time, from my upbringing in the Philippines. The first thing I want to say is that, obviously, as we know it, Silicon Valley runs on software and data. It's obvious, but with that fact, there's an inherent divide. We have to recognize that the current institutions in place, like the systematic way that Silicon Valley views and helps the social good sector, is inherently flawed. So there's a very nice way that tech does help these social enterprises or nonprofits that are putting social good as at least part of their primary thought. They're helping NGOs with the ability to collect data and do more impact with their work so that they can deliver more. But there are also so many ways that these good intentions in giving get messed up and can be actually catastrophic due to lack of understanding. And when I talk about things like this, I always like to cite this example from the Philippines with the case of Facebook. So Facebook had a plan to subsidize internet use in our country. So we have poor internet infrastructure and pricey cellular data, and a lot of potential for tapping into the digital market. We're also a primarily like English-speaking country, and are also the 74th out of 77th worst country in a survey conducted about like internet infrastructure. So we were like a perfect testing ground for Facebook to test offering their service for free. So Facebook provided free Facebook, intended to help billions of untapped people access to their network, and experimented with it in the Philippines. And it was an incredible success. Today, there's almost no one in the Philippines not on Facebook. Of the 70 million Filipinos who have access to the internet, 98% have a Facebook account. So free Facebook came around the time of our presidential elections, where we're in a pretty tumultuous climate. And the result was that it amplified hate speech, it amplified fake news. A lot of people were essentially desensitized to brutal content. And it also shifted the cultural landscape of our nation forever. It was weaponized by politicians, used to manipulate the flow of information to a public that largely does not understand the implications of the tool. And there's actions being taken to combat this, but what can we do when the action has already been done? What can we do with information campaigns when this was let out for years without any steps being taken until it began affecting other countries too? And that doesn't even touch on how other big tech companies, particularly social media ones, outsource the nuanced work of content moderation to countries like mine. There's a really great piece by The Verge, released on The Verge, that deals with the state of people who work for Facebook content moderation. They're often tasked to sort through maybe like 20,000 images a day, and they often have little health support and leave the job with disastrous and PTSD-like symptoms. So the point I'm getting at here is that big tech needs to know when to give space as to not obstruct progress than to step in and act as saviors. And it's hard because, of course, tech wants to provide access to the world. But sometimes these players just need to take a step back and listen. We can recognize the blatant systematic issue and voice out concerns against it. And as noble as the idea of providing Facebook to underdeveloped countries and sharing information and communicating, we see that what we predict and what these giants predict is not necessarily what happens. We have to recognize that our society today has also been forever changed, and that we might be a bit too late in predicting these things, that the spaces in itself have become toxic platforms, and we have to change the way they run. And that's in the view that this was put out in the best intentions, that's in the best case scenario. But it all just reinforces the fact that what the world needs is very different from what technology needs. Another insight that I want to share is that from working with a startup that essentially incubates students' ideas, that everyone in this room, I'm sure, and every young person we've ever worked with wants to change the world. And I think that's pretty clear to say. I go to Yale, which is a university where everyone wants to change the world. There's a disproportionate amount of people who want to be president, so there's also that. That's not really seen anywhere else, but the desire to make a difference is constant wherever I go. The roadmap to it differs. The most impactful young people I know want to change something close to them. We need to help more young people who are driven by this passion, not necessarily converting them to technologists, but maybe sharing technology as a bridge, rather than the end-all that's often happening in these universities or more prestigious or upper-class institutions. At Develop, when we do projects that incubate when we do programs that incubate projects for social good, it sounds pretty widely optimistic for a random undergrad. I'm not a VC. I don't have a Thiel fellowship or a company that I sold at age 15, but I know what it's like to want to build things and make a difference. And that's what differentiates us, I feel, especially because the technological landscape for making now is so different. And an important thing to know about Generation Z is that the high school and college students that we work with are more altruistic and selfless than ever if you give them the opportunity to do so. The mindset that people have in university is global and grand, but it's detached. There's no immediacy because they don't feel these roots. And in tech, that's pretty weird. We're living in an age where students can change the world from anywhere. We see the biggest companies today are started by people from their dorm rooms, but that's not what we're seeing anymore. It's the approach to tech today is so broad that it does nothing. I guess a specific scenario I want to cite is hackathons. We pour money into students testing out APIs, get their resumes, then let the projects drop. They get abandoned, maybe pinned on GitHub, get used as a talking point for interviews, but the action thereafter stops. The issue starts when we begin forcing technical people to think about what the world is facing. We start hosting social good competitions where they have no experience or investment in these issues, and they begin to solve problems that don't exist. We're kind of obsessed with getting privileged young people from the upper class, from the top universities to solve the world's problems just because they're technical or because they can make good employees. But how naive of a view is that, honestly? And what good results? The mindset that less privileged people have with little to no access to these same opportunities or resources, with just as much, but if not more, talent or potential as this. They do anything they can to change the problems that are most immediate to them. They boil down their issues to local things, their direct community, and they have concrete plans. They don't need your studies because they've lived it. And we need to start with more young people like this. With Developed, I worked with a student team who wanted to do something immediate. We put together a voter education web application for our 2019 midterms in the Philippines just last May. And throughout its election season, we engaged over 5 million Filipinos using Facebook as a space to inform people rather than disinform. It was kind of radical, especially for our country, and it made a difference. There was no business plan, there was no model, but the impact was there. We should consider starting with students who care strongly about an issue. Here, perhaps, technology should be seen as a bridge instead of a panacea for the world's problems. Because there are young people who can see problems in ways that we never can. We need to ensure that they get just as much as a right to succeed as their wealthier peers. Talent is universal, opportunity isn't. And moreover, we need to uplift social mobility in tech. This is hard to do because systematic, long-term action doesn't always deliver the numbers that impress or validate these programs. But are we going to want to continue making tech work for a minority of the population or make it work for all? So that brings me to this. Data and numbers mean nothing without humanity. A popular thing today is effective altruism, and a core principle of it is that we can maximize our impact by giving to high-impact charities. For one, the amount of money that a software engineer in San Francisco makes is going to be life-changing to remote villages and malaria control research centers, right? But it's this. The thinking goes that we earn as much as we can, pledge to donate a percentage of our income, or if you're part of the richest 1% of the world, hopefully acquired by ethical means that can give like half their net worth to philanthropy. Okay, that's great. Then you get to measure your impact in incredible numbers and send it out on newsletter or blog posts and congratulate yourself and implore others in your level to do the same. But then you're gonna go outside your job or internship's office and see these incredible amounts of inequality around you that you've really done little to nothing to solve, or maybe even further. There's massive amounts of homelessness and gentrification in these areas. And it's just something that I can't comprehend. I actually spent the beginning of my summer at a big tech company. I was flown to San Francisco. They booked us a hotel. It was pretty bougie and fun. And every single day, we'd stay quiet on the homelessness and the situation that was going right outside those streets. We'd take a 20-minute walk to the office and just say nothing and kind of accept it. And it was a diversity program. So imagine getting a few dozen young CS students to expose to about the joys of your company, how there's like free lunch every day, how there's free ping pong tables and things like that, but ignoring the issue that you create by being there, the housing injustice in the area that they're undoubtedly a part of creating. It made me realize that I kind of don't ever want to be in technology that prides itself on these kinds of things. I don't want to be in tech if it means that I am that detached from the world around me. Obviously, there are more complex systems in place, and I'm sure their numbers mean things, but then it's also so disheartening. The story carries over to what effective altruists are essentially preaching. These people enter tech that practically make their massive amounts of wealth on practices that sometimes aren't really so ethical and justified with philanthropy. But the thing is, you can't reduce good to numbers or that. It's incredibly patronizing. It also acts as justification for many people who do work to further these inequalities, as if impact and CSR reports mitigate the reality of the injustices that they're propagating. Instead, spurring genuine action, dialogues, that humanity in responding to the issues around you, these valuable things, I feel, get lost in the campaign for doing the most good. And this movement needs to go beyond curated list of the best charities. Maybe good relying on the donations of a few incredibly wealthy people isn't the best way of changing the world. And that brings me to the fact that we have to stop idolizing Silicon Valley. So I was privileged to know that I wanted to major in computer science. In high school, I came around in time for boom in startups in the Philippines capital of Manila. So technology was introduced to students in roadshows and one-off talks as a way to be the next Bill Gates, be the next Steve Jobs, and you can become a millionaire and driving cars are cool. But I was living in a society that never really cared about those things. And the shtick did attract some people, yes, but it divided others more. Why explore work in tech if it was so far gone from the world I was coming from? The idea of Silicon Valley being a thing we needed to bring to Manila was constantly pushed. The fail fast, fail often mentality further capitalized and exploited our cities. And tech conferences continue to question why we have no unicorn and why we're behind. But you look back on incidents like Facebook's and this massive gap in just bridging people together and having opportunity work from the ground up, and you start to understand why. And for a while, I bought into that into part of that disparity. Because who doesn't want to be part of building something you feel is great and doing good for the world until you realize it isn't? Perhaps this causes us to change our definition of progress. There's a reason why Silicon Valley rose where it did and not anywhere else. There's this unhealthy obsession with comparing our communities and spaces with Silicon Valley, and it's an unhealthy comparison that needs to end. We have to stop putting big tech practices and thoughts on a pedestal, learn that the measures of progress we immerse ourselves in are so different from the ones in the spaces we call home and that the rest of the world lives through. The rest of the globe doesn't need Silicon Valley. It needs technologists who care. And if we think carefully and intentionally, that could be us. At the same time, we need to be aware of tech's consequences, facilitate change at the bottom up, and be aware of how this disconnect has been weaponizing technology to do more harm than good. I guess to summarize all this, I firmly believe that big tech shouldn't obstruct progress. In fact, get rid of this savior mentality of tech companies coming into these countries and trying to do good. The system of good that we champion there is inherently broken. And another thing is that we need to believe in the next generation and invest in the entirety of it, not just the few that we get to report for numbers and things like that. There is a pipeline problem, and it's solvable. And I believe in the upcoming generation, or the next, who probably have to fix the problems of the last. But it would only be solved if we are taught that there's a pathway in tech that is beyond what we traditionally know today. Another thing we need to do is just work beyond numbers. Reducing impact, action, and change to numbers is disruptive, alienating, and furthers this detached mindset that really moves tech away from the problems of the world rather than making it work for it. Even refactoring that simple calculus and embedding ourselves in compassion and self-awareness at any stage of our career can mean infinitely much, because our decisions matter. Another thing that we have to do is just rethink our definition of change, rethink our idea of progress. Because I was taught to believe that there was only one pathway to change, and I know now that there's just so much justness that we have to contribute to or just not shut out. The tech is good, but tech is not the only thing. And there are many more movements to be won if we give them the bandwidth for it. When I think about my future as a software engineer, I want to believe that there are more pathways to succeed than what's traditionally there. And I want to be able to see them. I want to believe that I can work in a space where tech is synonymous with social good and not just an afterthought, where we're developed enough where this capacity isn't only in my hands or in the hands of everyone in this conference hall, but in the hands of all. And maybe I don't have the exact numbers or data to tell you how far away we are from that, or how much you should believe in me amidst these widely successful leaders of the industry or of this generation's tech, but I hope you can see that there's a genuine need for change. And that's a change in belief in what we need and how the next generation is thinking. And maybe that calls for us to begin taking risks in our career, to recognize injustice and our complacency, or potential participation in this, or to change our perspective and rethink about the things we build, the things we participate in, the things we subscribe to, and what they do. A world where technology is truly geared towards good isn't really far off, and you can be a part of molding that space. Resistance today is a powerful act. Empathy today can be radical, and we need to think about what the world needs first. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Kiara?
Thank you for the fantastic talk. I would love to hear about some of the projects that Develop has invested in or incubated, as you put it.
Yeah, I really want to talk about this upcoming program that we have next month. So in Manila, we're actually running the first by students, for students accelerator in the country. And the model we're doing for this is we're working on mission-based collaborations with mission-based organizations and NGOs. So we're working with people who have a demonstrated history of knowing their problem and things like that and connecting them to technical students. And a lot of these organizations are doing amazing work with mental health policy in a country where it's really underdeveloped. They're working on tangible ways to get more public school and private school students to work directly with street children and things like that. So it kind of works as a collaborative kind of incubator. We're using technology to sustain and scale their projects. You can learn more about the projects on our website, and there's honestly a lot of ways to contribute if ever. We're always, since it's a virtual incubator, and we're working with a lot of intersectional projects, we're always looking for people who are interested in holding webinars or just holding office hours and learning about what these organizations do. So yeah, that's the biggest project I want to talk about, but we also we have experimented with our model since our founding in 2016. We've done workshops, school tours, and things like that. And the biggest challenge we've had is definitely just sustaining engagement after those initial outreach activities. And I think that's a challenge that is kind of faced by every tech community that wants to teach more young people. Yeah.
We probably have time for one more question. Anyone? Kiara, I'm interested to know what you talk about data and numbers, and that they're not, we need to be careful with them. How do we measure and make sure that, you've opened our eyes? How do we make sure to measure that we're actually being effective? Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so when I talked about data and numbers, I was kind of leaning in on that perspective that a lot of these companies that are trying to do charitable works or social good projects just focus on getting the best, results, the immediate results. For example, as a result, a lot of diversity efforts, recruiting efforts, just do things in an unsustainable way. They're picking students up, but then not really ensuring that more students naturally enter these tech spaces and things like that. And I think that boils down to a focus on numbers. I mean, the fact that we're so focused on these in tech when we know that for a fact data is flawed in general and has created a lot of disparities from like housing to education. It's something that we have to look beyond, and that concentration, I guess, it makes sense since tech is just so logical and computational and focused on all these analytics. I'd implore like companies to kind of change their approach in how they tackle these projects or efforts, because as you can see, although there are lots of things being done, especially in the US perspective, it's not, I guess, enough, and they're not really tackling the roots of the problem. Yeah.
So Kiara will be available after the session if you'd like to speak with her. It is 3 o'clock, but please let's give Kiara a hand.